Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining me in this video. So in the last video on the aspects of Mars, we covered Mars from houses 1 to 6. So sorry, 1 to 7. So now we'll be covering the other houses. That means from houses 8 to 12. Okay. And if you have not watched the previous video, then I would advise you to go back and watch that video, and let's continue with whatever with wherever we had left. Okay, so now we look at Mars in the eighth house. Okay, so Mars in the eighth house, it represents association of the native with sudden events, surgery, accidents, inheritance, occult, oil, and mining. Okay, and this position can actually make a person have a career in surgery. Okay, it can make detectives, it can make someone as a emergency responder, for example, like an interventionist surgeon. Okay, it can also make someone a government spy. Okay, and Mars loves to be in the eighth house. Okay, because he rules the original eighth house of Scorpio. So it being in the eighth house, it gives the native the strength and willpower to dive into the dark world of the occult. Okay, and this position can also make one a very a very passionate practitioner of tantra. Okay, and as a soldier, Mars has the strength to keep information and use it to win battles. All right, and it can also make the native involved in some secretive government projects, like wiretapping or like spying and so on. Right, and this is also a position where the native can be highly sexual by nature, and especially in case of females, this position can make the female natives use their sexual power to climb up the corporate ladder. Okay, if Mars is aspected by, say, Rahu, or if Mars is conjoined Rahu, then women in this position can use sex as their best weapon to climb up the corporate ladder. Okay, and the this position of Mars in the eighth house can also cause sudden surgeries related to the heart, okay, other muscles, or it can also cause blood clotting in the native. Okay, but then during Mars dashas, okay, during Mars Mahadasha or Andardasha, it can also cause accidents and surgery. Okay, so from the eighth house, Mars aspects the 11th house of gains, of network circles, of hopes and wishes. And this aspect of Mars can create sudden conflict with network circles and in business dealings. Okay, and it can also make the native very, very selfish when it comes to gaining through their network. Okay, because when it is time to when these people will be very, very passionate about taking a debt, but when it comes to repaying those debts, Mars in the eighth house can secretly disappear. Okay, but then it can also, if Mars is well placed, it can also give tremendous wealth through government projects, through through mining activities, by selling gems, by by engaging in pharmaceutical business and so on. Okay, and these people, they are very much better off working alone rather than as a team, because because they are very, very dominating by nature, and no one likes their my way or the highway attitude. Okay, and then in the eighth, from the eighth house, Mars also aspects the second house with its seventh aspect. So if Mars is weak here, if Mars is debilitated, or if Mars is a functional malefic, then it can indicate a second marriage. Okay, and it makes a person very, very spendthrift, and someone who loves putting money in lottery or investments. Okay, but then it also makes the person very, very protective towards their family and their assets. Okay, and it can also produce aggressive investment banker. Okay, someone who invests family wealth into chemicals, into gems, into the mining industry. All right, and because it is in the house of transformation, so Mars can make someone gain or lose money due to their brother or male friends. Okay, and then because this is the second house is the house of speech, so the aspect of Mars and the house of speech, and can make someone have very, very aggressive speech, and it brings the tendency of meat eating. Okay, it can make a person consume very, very spicy food, very, very tamasic non-vegetarian food. But then if the person has if this Mars has the aspect of Jupiter, then the person can actually turn into a vegetarian, the person can actually switch into a vegetarian diet very, very easily. Okay, so from the eighth house, Mars aspects the third house of siblings, communication, media, hobbies, and short distance travels. Okay, so if Mars is weak, then the relationship with your siblings can be ruined. Okay, and if Mars is strong, that it can make someone a very good athlete. Okay, with a lot of skills. All right, and these people, they have a very aggressive way of communicating. Okay, and that can actually be problematic for these people. All right, and if Mars is and they're related, then they have a then they may end up having a bad relationship with your siblings or with your neighbors. All right, and usually these people, they have a tendency of dominating their siblings, and they also try to become, they also try to assume a leadership position in their own community. Okay, and these people, they are very, very self-reliant, and they can create wealth based on their own effort and skills. Okay, then Mars in the ninth house, not a very good position for Mars to be, right? But then it can give some very good contacts in the government. It can give some very, it can give you a high position in the government. That is. So in the ninth house, Mars represents, it represents gurus, teachers, higher knowledge in religious rituals. Okay, and it can make the native a rebel against these matters, right? Why? Because Mars is a soldier who likes to make his own way. Okay, and who likes to get through problems by building his own philosophy. So what happens is that the native can get into competitive arguments with teachers and fatherly figures. All right, and why? Because because there is often a tendency to feel that I can have a better knowledge of life than the people. I have a better knowledge of life than the people who are teaching these subjects. So the native is often bound by these thoughts that can create conflicts with gurus and teachers and authority figures. Okay, so from the ninth house, Mars aspects the 12th house of losses. Okay, the 12th house also indicates spirituality, foreign travels, asylums, jails, and hospitals. So, because Mars is also the planet of motivation, so it uses its own motivation and religious views to form a unique spiritual outlook. Okay, the native can use intuition, higher self, knowledge, etc., to to find moksha. Okay, and because Mars is also the karaka for surgeries, Mars is also the karaka for blood, for cuts and accidents. So it gives the native the ability to cure others in hospitals and use medical knowledge to cure those in asylums. Okay, so this is a great position for those who want to become a motivational spiritual teacher, or maybe who wants to become a priest, or maybe a pastor. Okay, or maybe maybe an artist who uses philosophy to fuel imagination. Okay, so from the ninth house, Mars aspects the third house of siblings. Okay, the third house also represents close neighbors, sales, media, marketing, initiative, courage, and communication, right? And with this position, with Mars in this position, the native will try to become a commander of higher knowledge and wisdom. Okay, and this can cause conflicts with younger siblings and close neighbors. All right, and then from the ninth house, ninth Mars will try to use his engineering ability and skilled hands towards constructing something of higher value. Okay, and to know whether this value will be productive in the long run or not, it is always important to see the dispositor of Mars. Okay, so this is a great position to be in for for small community leadership and skilled engineers. Okay, and then in the ninth house, Mars aspects the fourth house, which is its aspect. So this can bring conflict with the native's mother and people at home. Okay, and the mother can be very, very demanding. In fact, the mother's teachings about life can be very, very demanding. Okay, and because Mars also represents independent thinkers, so these people, they often run into problems and power struggles with the philosophy of the mother. Okay, we've all seen how the film Bahubali was. Yeah, so those who have not seen it, just see, and this is a perfect representation of what happens with Mars in the ninth house. Okay, so Mars in the 10th house, so very, very good position for Mars to be in. So this is the place where Mars attains directional strength. It is called Digbala. Okay, so in the 10th house, Mars feels at home. Okay, Mars, and because the 10th house is originally ruled by Capricorn, which is the exaltation position of Mars, right? So it is not only the house of career, status, and government, but it is also a jungle and a battlefield, right? Because because everyone is fighting for status, so the professional sphere itself becomes a battle. Okay, and this position makes the native fall in love with challenges in life and become involved in power struggles. Okay, so they are soldiers who accomplish their mission to go to the top of the food chain, right? So someone can be a policeman or maybe a soldier, a CEO, but their energy and willpower is all about all about attaining status, all about moving to the top of their profession. Okay, so from the 10th house, Mars aspects the, Mars aspects the ascendant, okay, which is the house of self, which is the house of body and personality. So this again gives a fighting mentality. Okay, this aspect makes the native extremely competitive, and they have ability to win the war in the shortest and quickest way possible. Okay, it also creates very headstrong personalities who are dissatisfied with everything in life, right? So what happens is that because it gives a very tough and dominating personality, they usually are not very good in while working with a team. Okay, or or while working with anything that requires teamwork. Okay, so these people, they need to be their own bosses. All right. So next, we have Mars in the 10th house, which aspects the 4th house with its, with its 7th aspect. So, you know again, this aspect is on the house of mother, homeland, childhood, comfort. Okay, so what happens is that it brings a dictatorship like mentality in the household. Okay, the mother, it also indicates that the mother could have been a, could have been a professional throughout life, and also exhibited an expected professional behavior in the house. Okay, so Mars is in the 10th house of the father. So what happens is, the native will eventually get into arguments with their parents. Okay, so in a way, it creates a lot of power struggles between the mother and the father. Okay, so Mars in the 10th house, it aspects the 5th house, okay, with its 8th aspect. So this can create conflict with children. This can create, arguments and power struggles with children. Okay, because the native would be very, very, would be naturally trying to dominate their children. All right, but then 5th house is also the house of creativity. It is also the house of romance and self-expression. So what happens is the native tends to find a lot of energy and dynamic artistic expression in their life. Okay, and this can actually turn into their profession. Okay, so it usually produces very good managers. Okay, it produces military servicemen, it produces sportsmen, and it can also give a career in media if this placement can also give a career in media if Mars is placed in Taurus, Gemini, Leo, or Libra. Okay, and this aspect can can actually make the children good athletes and give them a competitive nature, especially if, if the mother of the native also has this placement, right? So it's a very good position for Mars to be in. Then again, another good position for Mars to be in is the 11th house. Why? Because 11th house is the house of gains, elder siblings, hopes and wishes, and large network circles. Okay, so position placement of Mars in this house can make one very, very energized about social networks, about market trading. Okay, the native is driven towards financial competition with peers and network circles, and they want to have more income compared to anyone around them. Okay, and these people, they have a tendency of taking charge of the society as a whole and rule over them. Okay, they are like kings who are, who want everyone to follow them. Okay, and they're very good, they are very aggressive in making deals with professional networks, but because they are very, very dynamic, they have an ability to sustain relationships. Okay, but then if Mars is debilitated or if Mars is damaged, it can actually make them it can make them try to cheat others or simply dominate others to achieve their goals. Okay, so Mars in the 11th house aspects the second house of wealth, and because it is also the house of family. So these people have a tendency of losing their wealth by trying to by trying to take more care of their family. Okay, and these people will also have a tendency to overspend because they possess the confidence of a soldier. Right, so the native is very, very aggressive in speaking, especially when they talk to their family about, about wealth and gains. Okay, and they want to dominate and win the war of wealth with their family. Okay, and this can be good on good or bad depending on, on the position of Mars, on the, on the condition of Mars. Okay, so from the 11th house, Mars also aspects the 5th house. So here Mars can cause conflicts with children, arguments, power struggle, and give power struggle over finances. Okay, and again, Mars is the planet of domination, so the native will naturally want to dominate their children. Okay, but then, because 5th house is also the house of creativity and self-expression, so it can produce, great actors and actresses and artists as well. Okay, and Mars in the 11th house of controlling social circles and society, it makes the native attracted to politics, it can make them give out very energetic and dynamic political speeches. Okay, even people who are very very good speech writers for politicians and political parties also have this combination of Mars in the 11th house. Okay, they can actually rile up the public with their writings, with their speeches. So Mars in the from the from the 11th house, Mars aspects the 6th house of enemies, that's diseases and small animals. So this can actually make the native free from enemies, but it can give, if Mars is afflicted, it can give a lot of diseases. Okay, and these people, they can provide comfort and security to others, and they also have, they have their own plans, their own ways of overcoming diseases and deaths. Okay, so what happens is that even though these people may have a lot of enemies during their childhood or during their youth, over the time, over a period of time, they actually manage to overcome their enemies, because the 11th house is the upachaya house. That means it becomes better with time. Okay, so at times these natives, they also try and fight to make improvements in the healthcare system for the underprivileged, and they end up gaining through their enemies and through their diseases. Okay, just like how a doctor gains through enemies and diseases, these people also have the same tendency of doing it. Okay, so as I said, this Mars is mainly about finances, about social networking in businesses, but it can also produce very very successful entrepreneurs. Okay, so last position of Mars in the 12th house. So this is not a very good position of Mars, okay, because it causes conflicts in the bedroom, right? So 12th house represents bedroom. So it also represents isolation, hospitals, asylums, ashrams, okay, jails. So in the 12th house, Mars energizes imagination and sexual pleasures. So these people can have a, can have an overt sexual drive that can cause a lot of problems for their partners. Okay, and this placement also gives some unusual and secretive sexual experiences. So it can, it can give sexual experiences in the form of, childhood rapes, or in the form of sexual abuse. Okay, especially if Mars is placed in the nakshatras of Rahu and Mercury, right? And because Mars is a soldier and warrior, he does not want spirituality, he does not want peace or enlightenment. Okay, so what it does is that it uses the physical self to realize, to realize this potential of sexuality, of bed pleasures and so on. And these people, they are very much interested in practicing martial arts and yoga in isolated places where the physical body is the main source of concentration. Okay, so there is a strong desire for career in foreign lands, and and finding one's own power there. But then people with displacement, they must be very careful of not, not landing up in jail after, or due to violent acts after harming someone, right? So if Mars is debilitated, or if it is placed with Rahu or Ketu, okay, or if it is strongly aspected by a 6th house Saturn, it can actually land up the native in jail by making them do, do provocative things like harming someone. Okay, but then if Mars is very very favorable, for example, if it is exalted, or maybe if it is aspected by a benefic planet, then it can actually make the native an excellent doctor or a warden in hospitals and jails. Okay, so from the 12th house, Mars aspects the 3rd house of siblings, okay, neighbors, media. So these people, they have very very strong imaginative skills, and they use those imaginative skills to, to invoke energy in writing, sculpting, painting and so on. Okay, and one is able to use the spiritual imagination of the 12th house towards their hobby. Okay, they are able to use the creative imagination of the 12th house in enhancing the skills of your hands. And these people, they have a very direct way of communicating. Okay, so it can make them popular or very unpopular depending upon the situation, but these people are very very forceful with siblings and close friends. Okay, so in this from the 12th house, the direct aspect is on the 6th house of enemies, that's diseases and obstacles. So it can actually, because 12th house is the house of, is the house of foreign travel, so Mars can bring about enemies in foreign lands. Okay, one can travel to a foreign land and get into debt. Okay, so you know but then if Mars is having positive associations or positive aspects by benefic planets, then these people, they can actually fight debts, diseases and enemies. And then if Mars is debilitated or weak, maybe if Mars is or maybe if Mars is combust, then what can happen is that one can actually go to jail on behalf of enemies, or due to, due to criminal acts in foreign lands. Okay, and Mars often makes the native bring fighting skills and the ability to heal others. Why? Because the 12th house represents healing centers, jails, and mental asylums. Okay, so it can actually produce a very good doctor or someone who is working in the medical field. Okay, so in the 12th house, Mars aspects the 7th house with his 8th aspect. So 7th house represents marriage, spouse, legal partnerships, businesses, trades, and courthouses. Okay, so this is not a very good placement because it can give a destroyed marriage if Mars is aspected by malefics or if Mars is debilitated or weak. Okay, but then even if Mars is strong, it can cause a lot of conflicts and arguments in marriage along with false accusations. That means we can actually have situations where someone is falsely accused of something like of dowry or sexual harassment, and that can actually make the native land up in jail. Okay, so it's just a possibility. Just see how these factors work up in your chart, or whether they work up in your chart. Obviously not all of these factors will work, some of them will work, or rather most of them will work. So test your chart with these things, and do leave behind your valuable comments as feedback in the comments section. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you in another video, and like the content, subscribe to my channel, and share the content if you find it useful for yourself and for others. Okay, so I'll see you with more videos in the near future. If you have a query or if you want to consult regarding a chart, you are most welcome to reach out to me at the number given in the description box. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. I'll see you soon in another video. Namaste everyone. Om Gurave Namaha.